This conversation is brought to you with the kind compliments of CALL, that is, the Commonwealth of Learning. Gender inequality must be eradicated, and CALL is on a mission to help in its obliteration. It has embarked on a project to help young women and girls become motivated to pursue their fields of interest and build the future generation of leaders by launching the Commonwealth Wise Woman Project. This is a mentoring program that links girls from across the Commonwealth with mentors also from across the Commonwealth who are women in leadership roles with a story deserving of emulation. But CALL does not stop there. CALL is now taking that initiative further by creating this podcast series where I get the opportunity and privilege to interview some of these distinguished women and hear the path they took or the path that took them to leadership. COVID-19 has joined the long list of contributors to gender inequality, including globalization, technology, and climate change. But stay with us through this 10-episode series and hear how women have made their way over and around these hurdles. I am Dr. Ann A. Wallace, a higher education management and e-learning specialist, and I will be your host. This episode is entitled, Where There Is No Trail, Blaze One, brought to us by Miss Samantha Tross. Welcome, Miss Tross.
Thank you very much, Anne, for having me. Delighted to be here.
Wonderful. I would like to introduce our audience to you by reading your bio. So permit me to look away and read the bio to the audience, because this is such a fantastic bio. They need to be all about Miss Samantha.
Thank you.
Miss Samantha Tross is a consultant orthopedic surgeon practicing in London who specializes in treating conditions of the hip and knee and is the first female of Afro-Caribbean descent to become a consultant orthopedic surgeon in the UK. She scored another first in 2018, becoming the first woman in Europe to perform macro-robotic hip surgery. I'm sure she'll tell us what that is later on. Ms. Tross was born in Guyana, South America, and moved to England at the age of 11. She graduated from the University College London. Her basic surgical training was on the Royal London rotation and higher surgical training on the Southeast Thames rotation via Guy's and St. Thomas hospitals. She undertook sub-specialization fellowships in Toronto, Canada, and Sydney, Australia. Apart from her clinical work, she is the current department lead at Ealing Hospital. She's an associate editor of the Journal of Medical Case Reports. She's a medical examiner for Imperial College London and for the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago. She is an associate professor of orthopedics for the American University of the Caribbean and the recipient of a Black British Business Award for her work promoting science and medical careers to her community. She's also the recipient of the Wintrade Award for Women in the Public Sector in 2019 and has been included in the Black Power List since 2011. Ms. Tross is featured in a career book entitled Samantha Tross, Orthopaedic Surgeon by Verna Wilkins. Said book is part of the National Schools curriculum. She was named in Tackler's 100 Most Influential Doctors in the UK in 2013, featured in the BMJ Careers in 2018, and the Stylist magazine in 2019. Also in 2019, she was the keynote speaker for the Mayor's Black History Month celebration and was included in the photographic exhibition of 15 Black female leaders from different sectors, commissioned by the Black Cultural Archives and J.P. Morgan. Ms. Tross is passionate about promoting diversity, particularly in surgery, and was part of the recent diversity review panel set up by the Royal College of Surgeons of England to investigate the college's performance with respect to diversity and to suggest ways to improve. This panel's report, said to be the most pivotal report of the decade for the college, was published in April 2021, with the RCS agreeing to adopt all the recommendations. Samantha Tross has lectured on diversity at conferences of the British Orthopaedic Association, the Association of Surgeons of Great Britain and Ireland, and the Association of Surgeons in Training. She's part of the recently formed Cultural and Diversity Committee of the British Hip Society and was one of the speakers at the inaugural launch of the midweek educational series for the Society in April. Wow. Miss Samantha Tross, I am honored to have you here with us, to have this opportunity to interview you. You have clinical work, you lead a department, you function in several locations. You're an editor, you're an examiner, you're a motivational speaker, and you have taken the time to be here with us. I thank you. Please tell our listeners and viewers what you do.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that lovely introduction. Well, as the listeners have heard already, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. An orthopedic surgeon is someone who treats bones and structures that run close by bones, attached to bones, such as muscles, tendons, ligaments, and occasionally we treat nerve injuries as well. My job comprises of two parts. There is the trauma side, so I manage acute injuries, patients who have fractures, and then there's the elective side, in which I specialize in conditions of the hip and knee, and I do primarily hip and knee replacement surgery. I also do treatment for the soft tissues in the knee called the meniscus, where I do keyhole surgeries to repair that. Apart from the clinical work, I'm involved in teaching and education of medical students from Imperial College. We also have some overseas medical students from the American University of the Caribbean, and also training of the junior doctors in my department. I'm an educational supervisor overseeing the education of junior doctors in the hospital, not necessarily in orthopedics, but overseeing their training whilst they're in the hospital. And then there's a management side running the department. So as you can see, quite a mixed bag.
Yes, quite a very large mixed bag. You're an orthopedic surgeon, and from what you've said, for us lay people, it means you're a doctor. Mm-hmm. But you are referred to as Miss Tross rather than Dr. Tross. Please explain for our listeners why that is so.
Well, historically, surgeons were not medically trained professionals. They were barber surgeons. They were barbers, I should say. So they were originally known as the barber surgeons. And it was really the physicians that went to medical school and had a medical degree. And really, they directed the surgeons, just asking them to perform certain surgeries. So it was something sort of kind of looked down upon. To be a doctor was seen as a sort of hierarchical thing compared to a Mr. or a Miss. But as surgeons became, they formed their own institution, the College of Surgeons, and they went on to set up their own examination. They became very proud of the Mr. or Miss. And now it's like a badge of honor. So they wear it very proudly, and they use it to distinguish themselves from physicians, i.e. those who manage conditions without surgery.
Oh, great. Well, I hope our girls and young women are hearing this so they know that they can start off as Miss and they go all the way through and come back and again and still be on top. Now, you left your native Guyana at the age of 11 with your family to go to live in the UK. Clearly, you were following the family. But did you, as an 11-year-old, have any imagination that move was the beginning of a journey of excellence and leadership?
I would say not, although I must confess, when I was younger, I hope it doesn't come across as pompous, but I did have this feeling that I was going to do something special with my life. So I just had this feeling. And the funny thing is, I still feel like I'm waiting to do it. So, always looking for the next challenge. But when I left Guyana to come to England, I thought it would be for a year or two. I never expected to still be here. So I was of course very excited and so on, but I didn't know it'd be a journey to anything in particular. I had, by the age of 7, declared to the family I wanted to be a surgeon when I grew up. And I have no idea where that came from. My mom was a nurse, and so I would have visited her in the hospital. I had elderly relatives that died at home, my grandmother and a great aunt. So I witnessed death at a young age. And of course, I was a very avid reader. So somewhere in the mix to that, I came out with wanting to be a surgeon. I don't think I was very clear on what it all entailed. But apparently, I made a declaration that I'm going to be a surgeon. So there it goes.
That's very interesting. And I think that is very good for our young people to hear that, sometimes little children say, I'm going to be this, that, or the other. And then lo and behold, you grow up and be just that. So that's great. But I still think that a little girl at 11 acquires a kind of community of friends. So leaving that behind must not have been so easy. Aside from the thoughts of leadership or anything like that, what did it mean to you to move from Guyana to England?
Well, when I left, as I said, I thought I was only coming for a year or two. So there was nothing but excitement. Now, when I was younger, I loved reading, and my favorite author was Enid Blyton. And she wrote a lot of books about boarding school, and it sounded so fantastic. And I knew that when I came to England, I was going to be going to boarding school. And so I was just full with excitement. Of course, it didn't quite turn out to be as the book described. And thereafter, there was a sort of a feeling of loneliness. And I guess it's what's kept me really attached to Guyana, because that's my grounding and my foundation. Just thinking back to a time when I felt very happy. I'm not saying that I'm unhappy now, but that was my foundation as a child. And so that's what I always refer back to.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say pretty much is that you grow wherever you're planted. And being in boarding school, granted that Enid Blyton did not turn out as you thought it would, I still wonder, being away from your parents and from your native culture, do you feel that experience and all that it would have entailed contributed to building you into the character and the person that you are today?
Definitely, undeniably, I should say, because I think it was at boarding school that I learned resilience. Now, some people have it innately in them, but I think it's something that can be developed. And there were times when I was very unhappy. I'm away from my parents. I'm in a totally different culture. And not only that, although my siblings were at boarding school with myself, we were in different boarding houses. And so I was very much separated and alone. And so I had to learn to fend for myself. I had to become self-reliant to be able to motivate myself. But also another important skill that I learned whilst at boarding school was that learning to fit in. Because you had to. I was initially, of course, seen as a foreigner. People were teasing my accent and so on. But I learned very quickly how to assimilate and to fit in. And that is very important. I think if you have to learn to get on with others, it takes good communication, but it takes a lot of awareness, keeping your eyes open, checking to see how things are done, and then trying to fit in accordingly. Not to lose yourself, because I think it's important to retain a sense of self, but to learn how to fit in is a very important skill.
That's great. Your scholastic career has been outstanding. I read up a lot about you, and it's absolutely outstanding. And I thought to myself that, you could have been anything you wanted to be. You could have been an astronaut. You could have been the one taking customers to space now. You could have been an engineer or a physicist. And I heard you mention that your mother is a nurse, and that family members died in the home and so on. Could those be the reasons why you've chosen medicine?
I believe so. I still am not 100% sure where this idea, in fact, I can't remember at 7 making that declaration, but my father said, 7, you said, I'm going to be a surgeon. So I know I read a lot. Maybe I read a book. As I said, I know I visited my mom at hospital, and that's, so I can only put it down to one of those 3 things, or perhaps all of those contributing. But that was just to decide to become a surgeon. But of course, within surgery, there are lots of subspecialties. There's orthopedic surgery, which treats conditions of the bones and joints and structures allied with it. There is plastic surgery, which encompasses a lot of different things, to be honest with you. I'm sure your listeners probably have an idea of plastic surgery. A lot of the times when you think of plastic surgery, you think of cosmetic surgery, but there's a lot more than that. There is vascular surgery, surgery of the blood vessels, cardiothoracic, the heart and the chest cavity, neurosurgery, the brain and spinal cord. There's so many different surgeries, and I was fortunate enough to have training in all of these things. But the reason that I chose orthopedic surgery are these. The surgeons were the most affable. They were very friendly and very supportive. And that's something that has left a big impression on me. So I make sure that I'm very kind and nice to my medical students, because I know the impact I can have by someone's attitude. The specialty itself is very, the patients are very well with an injured body part. And I realize I don't really like treating patients who are very, very sick, or where there's going to be chronicity, where they take a long time to recover. My patients after hip and knee surgery are home within a day or 2. There's something for everyone within orthopedics. I'm a hip and knee surgeon. You can be a hand surgeon. You could be a shoulder surgeon. You could be a foot and ankle surgeon. You can treat children. You can treat the spine. There's absolutely something for everyone. The first female surgeon I ever saw was an orthopedic surgeon. So you can imagine that had a huge impact. And then the icing on the cake is that unless you work in a trauma center, most orthopedic surgery is done in daylight hours. And I like my sleep. So I think it's very important when you choose your career that you really have a sense of yourself, know yourself, so that you can choose appropriately.
What you've just shared with us covers a number of areas. One of them is that choosing a career could lead to so much. There's so many areas and avenues that you can go into. But I think what stood out most for me in this last comment is your leadership skills, your leadership ability, and your obviously natural approach to leadership, because you talked about recognizing the importance of being treated well as a trainee, and you exhibit that and exude that as you go through with your trainees as well. And that is very good to know. Tell me something. You're the first, and I keep saying this because it sounds so fantastic to me. You're the first Black female consultant orthopedic surgeon in the UK. Did you encounter challenges getting there? And I should also add, are there still challenges for you being a female orthopedic consultant?
Naturally, there were challenges. I faced sexism, I faced racism, bullying, which could have been a combination of any of those things. But overall, people were very supportive. I was fortunate enough to secure 3 mentors who, as being the first, of course, they didn't look like me. In fact, they were white men. So I would say to the young listeners out there that when you're looking for a mentor, yes, it's nice if someone looks like you, but it doesn't have to be. It's just someone who wants to support you and be in your corner. That's what you really need. So yes, the challenges that I encountered, the sexism, the racism, and bullying, what that led to was developing self-doubt. And that's despite having mentors, because you find that when you get negative comments, they have much more of an impact than a positive comment. So even though you have someone that's supporting you, sometimes the negative impacts, comments can stay there. And I started to doubt myself. And I would say that was by far the biggest challenge that I had to overcome, was to get over that self-doubt. Of course, these things are still there. There's still sexism, there's still racism. As you get older, you learn to deal with it better. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of work to be done in that area. And these are challenges that you're likely to face. But that doesn't mean that should deter you from pursuing your goal, or that indeed that you won't be able to achieve it. Just keep yourself focused.
Well, your comment on mentorship resonates very well with the Commonwealth Wise Woman Project because they spend a lot of time trying to link mentors to young women to help them to hear just what you have just said to us. So I thank you very much for that. But Samantha, a young, beautiful woman in a big city where there are so many distractions, how did you keep on track? And what I want to hear from you is how you kept on track and how you would advise other young women to stay on track.
Mhm. I kept on track because I chose something that I was passionate about. And that's why I say you're going to choose your career carefully, know yourself and choose something. And if the passion is there, then when you get these, and undoubtedly there will be challenges that you'll face. They don't seem like challenges. They're not things that are unsurmountable. So it was, in a sense, yes, there were challenges, but I kept focused. I knew what I wanted. I was relentless in my pursuit of it. And there was nothing that was going to stop me. When you have that attitude, you just do, you just keep moving.
Wow. And I don't just mean wow at what you said, but I want to talk about WOW, which stands for Women in Orthopedics Worldwide. And WOW published a video of women orthopedic surgeons dating back to 1990. And you, Ms. Tross, appeared as the 47th person on that esteemed list in 2003, and 20 women followed you. And as I was looking at that, I thought to myself that the mere mention of this, the mere fact that this publication was done, suggests that it's a man's world. And here are some 60 odd women who had the audacity to infiltrate. What is it like being at the top of your game, as the saying goes, where the players are mainly men?
Well, you're not wrong in saying that it's a man's world. Unfortunately, orthopedic surgery is the surgical specialty with the fewest number of women. When I qualified in 1992, only 3% of all surgeons were female, of all consultant surgeons. And with orthopedics being the one with the fewest number of women, obviously it was less than 3%. The percentage of female or surgical consultants now is 14%. So it's increased, but we still have a long way to go. It's exhilarating to know that I was able to break through and get to my desired goal, but there's still a lot of frustrations. As I mentioned, the sexism is still there. And apart from the attitudes of colleagues, which we are gently moving them along with, it's things like the surgical tools, the instruments, they're not designed to be used by women. The weight of the instruments and so on. So we now companies are starting to look at that and designing equipment with women in mind. In most things in life, they're not designed with women. When they look at cars and they look at the airbags are designed with men in mind. And in fact, the pressure that comes from that can sometimes be very detrimental for a woman. So I think people are now starting to understand that women, we're here to stay, we're part of the workforce. And if you want to keep us here, then you've got to put systems in place to make sure that we thrive. So yes, it's exhilarating, but it is frustrating at times. But we've got to keep pushing. And luckily, the message is getting through, and more women are coming into the specialty. So that's a good thing.
Well, coming out of that note on the negative side of it is, I think, something very positive for young women, because what we're hearing is that there are opportunities for the entrepreneurially minded for the development of tools and equipment in all spheres that are geared towards use by women. Thank you again for that. Now, you're no stranger to excellence. You were a star athlete at school. Would you say that focusing on sports in your formative years contributed to your leadership qualities?
Yes, I think that there are lots of important qualities to be learned from taking part in sport. Number one, it's discipline. And I think with any career that you choose, you have to be disciplined. You have to know when to apply yourself, and there are times when it has to take forefront and center, and it has to be about the work. I think it's important to have a balanced life, but there are times when you just have to have that focus and discipline. So that's one thing. With any sport, practice makes perfect, and again, with any other career, you've got to put in the work if you want to see the benefit. And with sports, it's a team sport where you've got to be considerate of others. And I think that's very important, because whatever career you're in is not usually something that you can do by yourself. You need people, and you need to be considerate of others, and to be able to communicate effectively. And these are all skills that one can learn with sport.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the word balance, because I can't help but wonder, how does a woman with such a high profile role create work-life balance?
With difficulty. But I keep striving for it, because it is so important for one's mental well-being that there is a balance. And that's what helps you when you will face challenges that will undoubtedly come. If you have a support network and other interests outside of work, that will help you. So I think balance is key.
The Pathway to Female Leadership is brought to you with the kind compliments of the Commonwealth Wise Woman Project. Before we went to break, you were telling us how you manage your work-life balance, and you made it clear that a support network is important. I just want you to add a little bit more, particularly female leaders. What do they need to help them to keep this balance going? Because we know sometimes it is said that a male leader, he goes home, he doesn't cook, he doesn't wash, he doesn't feed the children, so he can afford to go off and play tennis. But our females don't always have that luxury.
Well, I think, and this is important for those young ladies listening here, choose wisely. Choose your partner wisely. You need someone who's going to support you if you want to climb the career ladder, because there are times when, as I said, the work has to become front and center. And as many of you would probably want to have a family and children and so on, there are times when something has to take a back seat. And so having a supportive partner or network, whether it's family, extended family, and so on, is going to be key, because you will need that in order that you can, at times, put the career first, which you may have to.
Thank you. I think that is something not only our primary audience needs to hear, but just about all the female potential leaders need to hear. Oprah Winfrey says that you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. And then Sheryl Sandberg says that social gains are never handed out. They must be seized. Could I ask you to explain what these leading ladies are saying to our girls?
Well, I would say by those, what I interpret to be is that if you don't ask, you won't get. Well, number one, if you don't even think about it, you've got to dream, have an aspiration, firstly, before you can go ahead and fulfill it. So you first of all have, you've got to have that desire. And then ask the question, believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it's difficult for others to believe in you. It's got to start with you. I think that's what the message is that's coming across there.
Yeah. It's about you and you believing in you. Despite the many international agencies available today that deal with the protection of human rights, they deal with the protection of the rights of the child, and particularly the rights of the girl child, we still have parts of the Commonwealth where young girls are forced into marriage, unfortunately by their own parents, because maybe of social or traditional reasons. If those parents And I'm talking about being forced into marriage as children themselves. If those parents were listening to you today, what would you say to them to dissuade them from this practice?
No, I mean, these practices, I understand some of these things are deeply rooted in certain cultures, and it will take time for change. But I want to stress that women are a very valuable part of the workforce. They have qualities. Now, I'm not saying it's all women, but they naturally tend to be nurturers. They're supportive. They're loyal, and these are qualities that really someone who wants to go into a leadership position really should have. They have natural empathy, and women make excellent leaders. And I feel that they should be given equal opportunity, as with everyone else. I think deserves to have an equal opportunity, and they can make such an impact and contribution to society, to the world, and I think it'd be a great shame if they're not given that opportunity.
Yeah, equal opportunity is indeed a challenge in our world right now, especially for women. Would you say in that vein that the world owes women some form of affirmative action, or would you say that every girl, every one of us, should forge our own path and just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get moving?
I think a combination of both, right? I think that we have to have our self-belief. There's absolutely no career that any woman is not capable of. Yeah, there was some historically, for instance, orthopedics was one that required a lot of physical strength. Well, times have moved on. We've now got the tools to make it easier. So there is, we talk about entrepreneurship, the opportunity to do things differently if there are some challenges for women within a particular career. But there's absolutely nothing that a woman can't do. So I believe that companies need to be very serious about tackling the gender issue, and not just only gender, but culture and ethnicity. And if you're really serious about these things, then if you left the natural chain of events to take place, it would take a very, very long time before the balance is redressed. And therefore, I believe some affirmative action is required. Now, when I say it's not that you want to promote someone just because they're female or just because of a certain ethnicity. Nobody wants tokenism. But it's think of it as, some people say positive discrimination. No, not positive. It's well, how can I say? You have a desire, and you're trying to achieve it, and if that's the way you have to sell it to a company, then that's what you have to do. But I believe it's a combination of women believing in themselves and going for it, and companies making an effort to redress. And it's not just about getting the women into these positions, because we can do that and get women into positions, but then you've got to put the systems in place to make sure they thrive when they get into those positions. So there has to be systemic change as well.
Very good. That's very good. In this century, this 21st century, instant fame and fortune, especially for our young people in the entertainment industry, seems to be the order of the day. Not all, I must emphasize, but for many of them. And it is enticing our young women and girls. I would like you to say something to our starry-eyed young girls about the realities of becoming influential, about contributing to society and becoming a leader, because they're not all going to be music moguls and superstars.
Yeah, I think first of all, I want to say to the young listeners is that we have to really change what we think of when we think of a leader. A leader is not the person at the top of some sort of snowy peak, top of the mountain with everybody else down below. That kind of hero leader, I think we have to move away from. A leader is very much someone who is part of a community, someone who has influence and can impart change. And every single one of you is a leader in the making. So you have to believe that. So a leader is someone, I believe, who's not in charge, but who is looking after those in their charge. So it's about that sense of community, caring for each other, and looking for opportunities to make a difference. If you see something in your environment that's not working and you find a way to change it, that's leadership. So everyone has the potential to be a leader. That's the first thing. I think, as with anything that's gotten easily is not usually valued. And I think that any career that you go into is likely to require hard work if you're looking for longevity. And if you choose something you're passionate about, though, it doesn't seem like work. And that's the key to it. So it doesn't have to be work. Yes, it's work, but it's not work. And I believe that you've got to really don't look for quick. It's going to be short lasting. You want a career that's going to take you and move you forward and keep interesting and stimulating. And often, yes, that requires some effort, but hopefully it'll be something that's rewarding, and you will find that the benefits of your hard work will pay off, and be worthwhile.
You are very generous with your leadership guidance, your advice to young women. Do you find in your worlds that women are receptive, young women are receptive when you tell them these things, which don't always come over as exactly what they want to hear to start with?
I see. I'm coming across because I'm in surgery, so it's a self-selecting group. Yeah. So when you have a woman who wants to go into surgery, it's a woman who's got a bit of gumption, So it's perhaps, and these are women who want to move forward and they do accept the advice and they want to take it on board. But I mean, young people generally, I agree. There's a subset that they're influenced by social media, and some people have made it. And I'm not saying that you can't make it, but it's going to be extremely hard. You're more likely to have a sustaining career in the more conventional. But I don't want to be limiting on young people. Mm-hmm. Because of course there are a lot of careers that weren't available to me at the time when I was growing up, and things are changing all the time, and we don't want to limit them and say, oh, these are the careers to go into. I want them to think broadly, but it's going to be something that's going to require some work, I would have thought. Yes, so that's my view on the subject.
That's really very nice. In the spirit of equality, what is the lasting message you would have for all young people? Girls, boys, all young people.
I would say that you should respect one another, treat people in the way that you would like to be treated. So that's what I would like. I would like to see a world where there is equality and where everyone has equal opportunities to develop and to progress in their careers. And that takes us, it requires us to be our neighbor's keeper, in a sense. So if there are circumstances that you think that might disadvantage someone else, then try to address it, because that could be you the next time around. So that would be my thing. That's where I'd like to see people caring for each other and looking out for each other and respecting each other. Because if you want to have respect, you need to give it.
Yes. But I don't think that there is any book I could have read in the last half an hour to give me all that I have gotten from you today. I have one last question. If you were to meet your 11-year-old self boarding a plane, going to England, what would you tell her now? You're an accomplished woman. What would you tell your 11-year-old self?
I would tell her not to worry so much. I'm a worrier. A lot of people see this sort of calm, serene upper part, but down below there's a flurry of activity, going on. So yes, there is a lot of, but the thing is, and I don't think I'm alone in this. I think there's particularly women that suffer with that. We always underestimate our ability and undervalue ourselves. So I'm always, hoping to be better, trying to be better, and have anxiety about things that I have to do. So yeah, I would say worry less, because things seem to be working out. So that's what I say to my 11-year-old self.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samantha. Our guest today was the talented, charming Miss Samantha Tross, a renowned orthopedic surgeon and an outstanding female leader in the Commonwealth.
On behalf of the Commonwealth of Learning Wise Women Project, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Tune in for our next episode when we have another dynamic female leader from across the Commonwealth. I am Dr. Ann A. Wallace, signing off until the next time.